Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi. My name is Isabel, and I'm the sales director at Adjust for the UK and Ireland. I thought I was cool, but after checking out some of the panelists on TikTok, I can see that I have a long way to go, but I've learned a lot. I'm really excited to be here today moderating a top panel. We'll spend the next 45 minutes sharing super valuable insights about creator marketing and how to best use it in your mobile marketing strategy. In the next 45 minutes or so, we'll be diving into what's creative marketing, how to get started, and how to successfully implement this in your marketing strategy, and what you should consider when choosing the right creator for your brand. Well, to kick it off, I would invite our panelists. Thank you so much for joining us. Would you like to introduce yourselves? Ladies first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jara Foster-Fell, also known as Jara Bean on both Instagram and on TikTok. I am a full-time creator and also a social media coach, and my whole goal is to really empower people to transform their social media experience and really use these platforms as a positive and powerful tool, both for creators and for businesses as well.
Great, thank you. Benoit?
Hi everybody, I'm Benoit Vetter, CEO and co-founder of Mammoth Media. We have a couple apps targeting Gen Zs, one called Wishbone, the other one Yarn, which we leverage a ton of influencer marketing to promote and get downloads on the app. And later is also to create our own influencer marketplace called Promotely, where we match basically influencers and offers.
Great. Ross?
Hi guys, I'm Ross McCormack, Director of Social Strategy at Havas Media New York. And my day-to-day is really kind of helping brands with their creator marketing strategy, introducing them to new creators, and helping them build kind of long-term success with some of these platforms and creators.
Thank you. Last but not least, Hans?
Hi, yes, I appreciate you inviting me to this panel. I look after our mobile app advertiser business for our growth office in Austin, Texas for TikTok. And my goal is really to partner with brands to help them understand the power of TikTok and make sure they're getting the best bang for their buck out of their marketing efforts.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. So let's kick this off, right? Let's start with the basics. What is creator marketing? Hans, do you want to start?
Sure. So creator marketing, let's first start by talking about what is a creator, right? And when we look at TikTok, there's really two ways to use the app. One is as a consumer, so you're looking at content, and the other is to be a creator, so you create content. And really, when we think about creators, we want to have people that are being authentic, people that are creating content that resonates with their audience. And when we think about brands working with creators, we want them to understand that these creators know what works best on TikTok, what resonates with an audience, how to grow an audience. And so when you're thinking about using creators, there's really two different ways and two paths that you can partner with a creator. The first being to have them sort of create content that feels native, that feels authentic, and really expresses your brand proposition in a way that the users will feel is natural. The second is to actually have them post on their profiles so that users can see that the creator is really happy with using the product to begin with.
Great, thank you. Okay, so in your opinion, and this one is for Ross, in your opinion, what makes creator marketing such a valuable marketing tactic for brands today?
Yeah, well, if we start with a platform like TikTok and kind of the quality of content and the scale and engagement that it offers, it's such an important place for brands to be right now. And if you're going to be on TikTok, it makes sense to be working with the group of people who know the platform better than anyone else, have the most credibility, and have really highly engaged audiences. We know from some of the campaigns that we've run that creator-produced videos outperform brand assets in terms of average watch time, engagement. So there really are kind of huge benefits in terms of just the quality of content, media efficiency, and connecting people with audiences through a lens that is actually meaningful to them.
Right, it's very personal, very authentic, right? It's not like a sales pitch from a brand, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about it from the viewpoint of a consumer, receiving that type of messaging from someone who you've already bought into kind of what they're saying, you're totally sold on it. So it's so much more impactful that way.
Makes sense to me. Jared, do you want to?
Yeah, I would like to jump in there and add to that. I think the power of social media and the power that we see within creators is that social media is a two-way street. And I don't think that this has ever really existed before. If you think about billboards, if you think about magazines, you're putting a message out, but as a creator, I'm also receiving messages back. And that's really the biggest, I think, asset that I have is my trust with my community. I've been on Instagram with the account that I have these days for almost 6 years now. For TikTok, it's been just over a year. And a large part of my effort is to build relationships and to really be a human and like humanize this whole process of social media. And so you're tapping into that accessibility. Like I've created this relationship with my community. And I think that's really the power of partnering with a creator. It's this two-way street. It's a conversation. It's the trust that they have built with their people.
To be honest, after checking you out, I felt we were friends at the end of it. So yes, I'm complete with you on that one. So Benoit, do you have anything to add here?
Yeah, I wanted to go on with what Russ was saying about the genuine aspect of the messaging, like either instead of coming from the brand itself, coming from someone else. And I think that's where, you know, when you compare an Instagram where it's so polished and people spend hours filter after filter, it's another marketing tool. It doesn't feel real at all. And even with their attempt of real, it doesn't cut it. Where a platform like TikTok or Snap Spotlight, where you're able to really see things in a way where they think about presenting it with their own messaging. They are not looking at it as a storefront. They are looking at it as how they communicate with their audience. And so it doesn't feel like a marketing message anymore. It really feels a core message. And for us, that's been, as an advertiser, that's been the key point of doing influencer marketing. It's and that's why also those messages can become actually paid UA creatives as well, which I think we'll talk about later. But for all mobile marketer, it's super important to understand.
Cool. It's definitely a hot channel, let me tell you that. Thank you for that. Benoit, this one is for you. What are some of the initial things to consider when incorporating this tactic, you know, creator marketing, into your overarching marketing strategy?
So I think there are different factors. First is finding the right creators, which is not going to happen at the first shot. So you need to be patient and you need to test and you need to get data on performance. And from the data that you get, then you start to expand to similar audience, similar creators. So that's one thing. The second thing, obviously, for most of us that are on this panel or listening in is we are direct response advertiser as well. So we need to have performance. And so you need to have proper tracking, right? So Adjust being one of them, where we need to be able to have attribution in place. And so that's where we need to make sure that you have the right process in place with the creators, to have the right links in the bio, wrap them properly so you can track accurately the performance of those campaigns, because it's completely different from any other paid user acquisition campaign. So that's the thing. The third thing I would say is make sure that also you come into this with respect to the creators, meaning that you need to let them do their job. If you come with like a 3-page brief and tell them, this is what I need you to say, this is what I need you to do, then just go buy an ad on Instagram, or, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not helpful. Though, so you have to come with that. You don't want to micromanage them. And that's why you have to expect that sometimes it will work, sometimes it won't work, because the creator may be good, the creator may not be good. So that's, I would say those are the key points that I will look at. And then in terms of scale, because obviously one campaign, at least for us, doesn't cut it, right? You get one campaign out. What I want to be able is to replicate that over and over and over. So you need to have a mechanism to manage all your influencers. And so you need to find the right platforms to do that. And also you need to understand, like, a lot of people think creators, you need to go to top creators, right? 10 million plus or million plus. There's so much more, I would say, in my opinion, so much more value in the micro creator network, right? So you have micro creator and group of people. So you have like the 500,000 less followers. They're actually so engaged with their audience more than any of the big guys, because a lot of the big guys have such a large audience that it's not as engaged as it used to be when they had smaller group of followers on it. So I would say pay a lot of attention to the smaller influencers, the other one that will get you scale and the other one that will give you quality.
Good. So I had a few things there, measurement, make sure you can measure everything. Choose the right creator and let them do their thing. We're going to pick on this topic later. I could see Jared there nodding and smiling. We'll come back to that one, okay? And then, don't neglect the smaller creators, because those ones can drive performance quite a lot for you guys. Okay, thank you for
I would
that.
say more than don't neglect, focus on it, I would say.
Focus on them.
Yeah.
Focus on them. Okay.
Yeah.
Ross, do you want to add anything here from an agency perspective? Do you agree? Anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Benoit was saying. The one thing that I would add, especially from my point of view, as I have a role at a media agency, so it's really important that on the media agency side that we think of creator marketing outside of just a traditional media buy. And by that, I mean, kind of the brand is buying into the creator's audience, they're buying into their creativity, they're buying into their platform expertise, as opposed to just purchasing ad space in their feed, right? So it's important for us to understand, first and foremost, what the brand's needs are and how do we communicate that to the creator, but also kind of what are the creator's needs, kind of what are they trying to get out of this? And it's, it's a fine art kind of working to find that intersection that will ultimately give the creator the most freedom to produce the most impactful work.
Thank you. Very interesting. Jared, this one is for you. In your opinion, how does creator marketing differ from influencer marketing? Because before I met you all, I don't think I knew the difference.
Yeah, I feel like I have a lot to say on this one. So stick with me here. I think the first thing that comes to mind is the word influencer. And I don't want to say it's a negative word, but all the time I hear either people using it in a negative way, or I hear influencers, and myself included, because I'm in that space, saying, oh, I hate using this word. There's automatically this negative connotation with it. So I don't want to speak about it from a negative way, but let's just acknowledge that. I do think even sort of outside of that lens, I see sort of Instagram more as an influencer space in general and TikTok more as a creator space. I see influencer as kind of a more polished, curated end result, something that, it's a little bit more of the highlight reel, even though I try and push back against that notion. And TikTok, I see more of sort of come along with me as I tell my story. And so the influencer space is kind of more, in a way, in general, talking at people versus creators really talking with. So that's kind of the general distinction I see. And I was even thinking this morning about TikTok as I was scrolling, because I spent a lot of time on that app, how within TikTok, the amount of times I have gotten so teary-eyed watching videos, like there's a whole trend right now with students holding up thank you notes to their teachers on Zoom. And like, I know what's happening every time, like I start to cry or I start cracking up by myself. And it takes a lot to feel that type of emotion, especially when you're by yourself, just scrolling on an app. And I was thinking how rarely I feel that on Instagram. And don't get me wrong, I love Instagram, I teach it, but I see more emotion and more storytelling associated with being a creator versus being an influencer. And so I feel like all the things I've said have kind of put a downer on being an influencer a little bit, but I just see a shift happening with people wanting to be more of the creator and seen more in that positive light with that energy and storytelling and emotion versus just saying, here's my pretty feed, here are my pretty pictures, which don't always have the substance behind it.
Thank you for that. Obviously I was looking at both platforms and your profiles, and on an Instagram you have like these beautiful perfect pictures, but then I saw the making of those pictures on your TikTok, and it was hilarious because you all of a sudden you became a normal person just like me, and I connected with you a lot more by seeing that than just the final polished product.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think there's ways to do that on Instagram still. Like I provide a lot of behind the scenes in my highlights. Sometimes I'll do a carousel post showing the behind the scenes of like all the weird poses I had to do to get to a photo. But you're right. You see TikTok does lend itself more towards that behind the scenes kind of humanizing content that you don't necessarily get all the time on Instagram.
Thank you. Anyone else wants to add anything here? Maybe Benoit?
I can add to that actually. It's because from an advertiser standpoint, we see the same thing, and actually leveraging downstream events through any attribution platforms, especially Adjust, where you can see all those users then are behaving. An Instagram user coming from an influencer campaign may download at the same rate as they download on a TikTok campaign, but when you see the quality of those users downstream about what they do in your app after they download is a completely different story. So when you start looking at the lifetime value of a user overall, we are not talking about the same thing. So, and that's also the problem. I think that's good that direct response marketer like us on the mobile side educate the brands, because the brand will buy on a flat fee or whatever and pay the same rate on both. But actually, when you look at it in terms of engagement with the product downstream, it's a different story.
And that's why measurement is so important, right? It's not about the install, it's about what happens afterwards. Good.
Exactly.
Cool. So creator marketing went from being the exception to being an essential piece of many brands' marketing strategy. Ross, what elements should you look for within a successful creator marketing campaign?
Well, there are a lot. For me, like kind of the number one thing, and I'm sure we're going to talk about this a lot today, is just having kind of real synergy between the creator and the brand. And building a collaborative relationship where kind of all the parties understand each other, they trust each other. I'm interested to hear kind of the creative perspective on this from Jira, but just from like my role in the agency life, sometimes I'll approach a creator with an opportunity and they'll say, oh, thanks, but I don't think this campaign is a good fit for me or for my audience. So when that happens, I kind of make a mental note and think I might want to work with this person in the future, just because I know that they put a lot of thought into their content and they know what their audience is looking for, and they know how to kind of maintain that authenticity long term.
It's a really a big partnership, right? You need to be right for the creator, and the creator needs to be right for you. Jira, what would you add in here?
I think my biggest metric of success when it comes to working with brands, because I've been doing it for several years now, I've had all examples of on the spectrum. And of course, there's things like numbers. Don't get me wrong, the metrics, we got to look at those and conversion and all that kind of stuff. But for me, on the creator side, what is the most exciting thing to me with a brand partnership is when my community messages me, whether it's a DM or a comment, and they're like, you are the only person's like story ads that I'll watch because they're so creative, or this really got my attention, or this is the best ad I've ever seen. And that is such a huge compliment to me that I have somehow thought outside of the box or brought my personality to it, or whatever it is, that it's standing out and actually grabbing people's attention. So that's always such a huge boost of confidence and sort of validation that I'm doing my branded partnerships in the right way that makes sense for me and for the brand.
So, right fit between the brand and the creator, and then authenticity and creativity is key here, right? Okay, Benoit, do you have anything to add?
Also, when you do those campaigns, especially for all the mobile marketers that are listening, do two things. First, negotiate the rights upfront for usage of the creative, right? Because I can bet you're going to find those creative work go back after and try to get a hold of the creator and figuring this out after the fact. So get a hand on that around. I'm probably going to use your creative after that for digital paid media. So let's make sure we're all clear with that. So that's a very, very important fact. The second thing, as a mobile marketer, in terms of performance, look at your IPM. IPM is a metric that is known by a lot of mobile creators, which is the number of installs that you get per 1,000 views. And you're going to see a huge discrepancy of IPMs per creators. That really tells you about the engagement of their audience. But also what you're going to get from a very high IPM is that you can run that ad on a paid media and it will really beat any other campaigns that you run. And that is a plus. So it's a big, big differentiator that more and more mobile marketers are looking at. And this is especially for the Gen Z audience, it is a big, big thing to think about.
Great, thank you. We touched on creativity, right? So in 2020, there was tons of opportunities for creators to be creative, right? Jira, can you share some insights about 2020 and how this compares to previous years? Please.
I think the way that we all use social media, whether you're more of a consumer or more of a creator or a brand, has taken some pretty huge shifts this year in 2020. Some of them have been a bit challenging. Some of them I think have been really wonderful and have pushed our creative boundaries. If I think about specifically how I've been working with brands within kind of limitations. So specifically, there's one campaign I have in mind a couple months ago where we couldn't really go outside much and shoot. Like, you know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so I had to use my home as creatively as possible, which I usually don't shoot in. I like to be outside. And so that specific moment, I was really testing my creative boundaries within these limitations. I'm like, all right, let's move the couch. I'm going to get up on the windowsill. I'm posing within the window, or I'm using my bed and I'm upside down, like these things that just stylistically and from a posing photo perspective, I wouldn't have necessarily done before. So it's taught me a lesson that sometimes when we're limited with what we can do, whether it's our space or whatever, sometimes that actually boosts our creativity even more. That's what I found for me. And in addition, sort of going past the photos, I think the biggest change for me in a really exciting way, because of the rise of TikTok this year, and I've been so just entrenched in that platform. I absolutely adore it. It's been such a breath of fresh air for me in the social media space, but that's also really translated to my partnership. So I'm doing a lot more video. I'm translating sort of the transitions and editing that I would do on TikTok to what I would do for my branded partnerships. I just did a real, I like to do weird stuff sometimes. So for example, I was just a wizard in one of my videos, and with the TikTok transition, I transformed this one bar, it's a protein bar, into like their smaller bars with a poof. And I'm like, I would have never dressed up as a wizard before and poofed a bar had it not been for 2020 and TikTok and all these cool editing and transition styles I've used. So I think we're no longer just confined to photos. And I think we're really going to see that progress even more into 2021, and kind of getting rid of this curated perfection, and what can we actually be creative with the mediums that we have in terms of videos and TikToks and Reels, etc.
That's really interesting. Thank you, Jera. And Hans and Ross, can you please comment on that as well? You know, from a brand perspective, is that different?
Yeah, I think this year in particular, brands have really figured out the importance of not just marketing to a community, but partnering with the community, right? So how do you take the trends that are already happening, the way that your brand is already resonating with the community, and leveraging them to say, how can you help us create content that is positive, that uplifts the whole community, that the community is inspired by? And we're seeing that on TikTok, where we say things like, don't make ads, make TikToks. When you look at something like a hashtag challenge, which is very unique to TikTok in terms of an ad offering, where you can sponsor a hashtag and you can get, you know, hundreds of thousands of videos created by the community that is talking about your brand, that's engaging with your brand in a positive way. And I think that's been such a refreshing thing for brands to experience, is the amount of positivity that they see on TikTok and hopefully on social media, whereas previously, typically when brands were mentioned, it may have not been in like the most positive light. Another good example is the Ocean Spray example, where, you know, Dogface was on the skateboard and he was using cranberry juice, and then next thing you know, that's sold out everywhere. And so these are like examples of how you can take sort of something that's happening naturally, it's already going viral on the platform. TikTok makes it very easy to discover those trends, and you can tap into those trends by asking the community to build with you.
Thank you. And, you know, speaking of positivity, what a year this has been, you know, from the consumer as well, having that fresh, you know, fresh hair, like it's amazing, right? So absolutely aligned. What about you, Ross? What would you add here?
Yeah, well, I mean, 2020 was definitely a really disruptive year for kind of all of our brands. They all had to completely reimagine how they connect with consumers and the types of messaging they were putting out. But it was really interesting for us to see kind of the role that creators played in all of that. So I'll give one example. We work with a number of different alcohol and spirits brands. And we went to our creators and said, we want to promote this new cocktail. But we were mindful of the fact that, you know, everyone is staying home and social distancing rather than socializing at parties or in bars. And at first we thought, oh, wow, the content's going to be really limited because there's not much we can do at home with our roommates. We asked them, how would you approach this? And the ideas that we got back from our creators were like just so inventive. They were funny. They were really touching because they were talking about things that like everybody in the country is experiencing right now. And it just led to like a really strong campaign. And it was a great example of how creators have been kind of thriving this year, despite everything that's happened.
How weird is it that we all isolated but more connected than ever? Don't you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's become the new normal, but it has been, at least from a marketing perspective and in terms of my role working with creators, it's actually taught me a lot about kind of my role and how I choose to work with the creators in the future. And some of the things we've already talked about just kind of letting go of the reins and letting creators take control. This year has been kind of a huge lesson in that for agencies, for brands, for everyone.
Love it. Creators at command. Yes. Okay, good. And Jared, this one is for you. Obviously, one of the benefits of brands collaborating with a creator is to tap into their audience, right? Tap into their audience and you establish relationships and establish as well or create an authentic dialogue with your audience, right? So can you please elaborate on the value of a creator's audience for a brand?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the fact that part of my job is to create connections and relationships with the people who follow me. And I don't even really like the word follower, because to me that kind of makes it seem like this one-way street. As I mentioned earlier on, social media is a two-way street. And I think that is what we need to focus on in that sort of community building sense as we move forward. It's not just look at me, here's my life, here's my content. It's how can I benefit your life? How can I add value with the content that I'm bringing on to whatever platform that I'm on? And so I think so much of what goes on behind the scenes that has been happening for me over the last 6 years are these really personal, sometimes really heavy moments that maybe people, when they think of influencers and content creators, they don't really know kind of the support that we bring to people. I've had everything from women messaging me. I've spoken about my anxiety before, and they say, because of you, I made my first appointment to see a therapist. I've had women battling like really bad body issue challenges. I've had people who have felt suicidal. Like, it's been such a huge range, and they reach out to me. They reach out to comfort and support for me. And hopefully I can provide that. I try to for the best of my ability. Obviously I'm not equipped for everything, but that is sort of what goes on behind the scenes. And to me, that is so precious. That's what you're not getting with like a celebrity or a billboard. As I mentioned, creators have this immense power in this relationship that they've cultivated with their audience. And so I think brands who are savvy are aware of that, and they understand that real power that creators bring to the table. It's not just saying, hey, like, look at this thing that I'm using. It's, hey, look at this thing I'm using. We've established trust already. So this is something that I like, I'm excited to talk about, and I also think brings value to your life.
Great. There's this community, right, where people just, they're interested in similar stuff and they respect each other and they listen to each other, right? So what about from a brand perspective, Benoit? What would you say is the value of tapping into the creator's audience?
I mean, like I said, like we say from the beginning, is this the fact that the creator, especially on a platform like TikTok, can genuinely speak about a product, about how they use it, why they like it, and put it in their own words to their audience that are already listening and engaged. You cannot do anything better than that. That's why influencing is like sharing with your friends, and it's completely different from any other social platform, right? So I think for us, that's the value. And the second value, which I keep bringing up, especially for the mobile marketers out there, those videos are the best ad creatives out there by a long shot. Give it a shot. This is crazy. So the value of the creative is way beyond just the message that they put out. It goes way beyond that.
Good. Thank you for that. So how can we make this, right? How can we start doing creator marketing successfully? For someone that never invested in creator marketing before, what would your tips be to get started, and how would you measure success? Can we start with Hans, for example?
Absolutely, yeah. So this is such an important question, and the answer really is just to get out there and do it, right? Like, the more you join the TikTok platform or any social media platform and you get engaged with the community, see what type of organic content is trending on the platform, what's really resonating with the user base, that's where you really start to find your own voice, right? And once you've found your own voice, then you're able to sort of reach out to creators who also fit maybe a similar voice or is is somewhat similar in terms of how do you reach an audience that you want to maybe branch into, expand. And you can do that through TikTok by our creator marketplace. So this is something that we offer to brands. It's quite unique to TikTok, where you can actually go on our platform and find and discover creators in many different categories, and you can see, roughly what their engagement is like, and then you can actually reach out to them on TikTok through the creator marketplace. And so that's definitely a key starting point. And then the other thing is making sure that you understand not all creators are the same in terms of how they want to work with you. They all have their own ways of how much they want to get paid, or the type of payment method that they prefer. Is this a short-term relationship or long-term relationship? So just be flexible. Know that there's no one-size-fits-all strategy necessarily when it comes to creators, but just allowing them to have their own voice and trusting in them is really like the best approach.
Okay, thank you for that, Hans. And Ross, do you agree? Anything else you'd like to add in terms of tips to get started and how to measure success here?
Yeah, I mean, well, I just really encourage brands just to think about what their objectives are first and foremost, as well as kind of how creator marketing integrates with their broader marketing efforts. If you're just getting started, it's always helpful just to run some initial campaigns just to test what works for your brand, because what works for one brand, it doesn't always work for another. So it's always helpful to do that. And it might just take some time to identify which creators have the strongest affinity for your brand and kind of build that relationship. Don't be discouraged if everything doesn't click into place immediately. It rarely happens like that. But if you just test and learn and establish a way of kind of collaborating with creators in the process, learn how they like to be briefed, then you're kind of able to focus on kind of building out a long-term strategy. The briefing process is still really important, and it can be challenging because you're trying to convey a huge amount of information in a very clear and simple way. So kind of we might try to put together a very succinct one-page brief that kind of outlines brand guidelines. And again, it's just important just to be open and honest. So kind of whether that's being honest with the brand about what the right strategic approach is, or just being honest with the creator about what the brand's expectations are and kind of ways that we can empower them to produce the most meaningful content.
Thank you. And Ross, you can carry on this one. What metrics do you keep an eye on, and how do you analyze the results of the campaign?
So again, it's a case-by-case basis, and we always think kind of, first of all, what's your objective, and then we'll kind of establish KPIs based on that. I'd say for the vast majority of campaigns that we've run this year, we've tended to focus on kind of high-level media efficiency metrics like CPM or CPA. For organic content, I still feel engagement rate is a good indicator of whether that content is relevant to that audience. But kind of we found that creator marketing has been most effective as an awareness play, and at times we do delve into other metrics around consideration and purchase. But it goes back to kind of what I was saying before around kind of giving creators as much freedom as possible. And we kind of find when we focus on more of those high level metrics, it just gives creators more freedom to tell a story and not have to worry too much about kind of how many clicks am I going to get or how many sales am I going to drive. And ultimately kind of receive really successful campaigns off the back of that, and then kind of consideration and purchase will follow.
Thank you, Ross. Benoit, can you jump in here as well?
Yeah, for us as a direct response, and for all the mobile marketer out there, the first one I was mentioning is the IPM. So we definitely look at the number of installs per 1,000 views on the post. We look at the engagement on the post as well. We look after that at the organic lift, which could be difficult because if it's not just a big boost, we may not see it if you run already a ton of campaigns. So the organic lift is quite difficult to gauge there. And then after that, it comes down to the ROAS, right? Your return on ad spend. And so we look at downstream, usually a D1 event and then a D7 event that gives us a really good view into your 6 months recoup. So that's the key metrics that we look at. And actually what is really good is that you can apply those metrics on influencer marketing. A lot of people think, oh, it's just going to be organic lift. No, now all the campaigns that we run or have a tracking link in their bio, and we can track every single thing.
Thank you.
Until
Thank you,
iOS 14 comes out.
Thank you. we've talked about, finding your tribe, right? Finding the right creator for your brand, finding the right brand for the creator. Okay, if I think about it, essentially, creators are becoming brand ambassadors, right? When they decide to work with a specific company. So, Benoit, how does Mammoth Media choose which creators to collaborate with?
So we built a pretty intense tool in the back end where we have audience data, and we from the audience data we pick our initial influencers, and like I say, we really focus on the long tail. And then from there, what we do is we have built also a tool to really reach out to all the creators and be able to push our creative brief to those creators through our platform remotely. And then from there, we test, right? So we have a good sample of creators. We push that out, and then from there we see the performance metrics coming back, and then we match those performance metrics back to the audience, and then we are going after that audience. And so once we know the audience that works well, and sometimes you can be very, very surprised. I have an example of a gaming studio that find and the game it was a hyper casual game, nothing to do with that, but it performed so well with all the true crime influencers, creators on TikTok. So all the ones that are telling stories around true crime have been performing so well for a game that actually has nothing to do with it, but you don't see it until you test it. And then when you start thinking on it, it may make sense. So then we match that and look for those creators, and then go to expand the campaign that way. So it's a lot of audience segmentation and then after that, testing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And Ross, any advice you would give to brands when choosing what type of creators to work with?
Well, I'd say first and foremost, just kind of immerse yourself in the content they're creating, right? So there are various tools that we use to kind of discover creators with a data-driven approach. We use TikTok Creator Marketplace that Hans talked about earlier. And so we'll often use that to understand the creator's audience composition, the types of content they're creating, what the performance metrics are. And really to kind of make sure that they align with the audience that we're trying to reach. But I think kind of the most valuable thing after that is just kind of immersing yourself in the types of stories they're telling. Do the values they have align with the brand? Is their tone right for the brand? Can they integrate your brand into their content in a meaningful way?
Perfect, thank you. Do you have anything to add here, Hans?
Yes, so I think one of the greatest assets actually is you can go to a hashtag and you can see what hashtags sort of are related to your brand. For example, if you're a fintech stock, you can search personal finance as a hashtag and see thousands of content that's bubbling up to the top where people are already engaging with. And those creators are probably going to be a good starting point of the type of creators that you would want to use. Another good example is essentially you can look at brands and they already have some organic content that's tied to them. Creators are often using these brands. They go and talk about these brands on TikTok or other social media platforms. And again, on TikTok, I do think it tends to be more positive than not. And so when I'm reaching out to brands, I actually show them these videos and I say, hey, this was already happening on the platform. Imagine if you were to amplify this, if you were to put paid media behind this and just allow you to drive the kind of metrics that you want, the IPMs, the cost per installs, in a way that's like you don't actually have to engage with your creative team to create assets that are going to take 4 weeks to 6 weeks to create. You actually already have it ready to go.
Thank you for that, Hans. But guys, this is a two-way street. Jera, can you tell us, how do you select the brands you work with?
Yeah, I think a lot goes into it. I often ask myself, the first question is, does this align with my personal brand? Is this something that I feel excited to talk about, excited to present? Is it something that I use already? Is my audience going to be excited about me posting about this? Is the brand offering my rate? Are the terms fair? Because we know there's usage and perpetuity and exclusivity, all these sort of things that go on behind the scenes. I think for longer term partnerships, like brands that want to renew, that's an easy yes for me if it was a good experience working with the brand and a good collaborative effort. But I think where things get a little bit more challenging are the one-offs. there's only so much that I can kind of perceive about a brand and behind the collaboration and the partnership coming up. And I do my best to kind of weed out what feels good and what doesn't feel good. But I've had plenty of partnerships where I feel like I do my due diligence. I have a good idea of what the campaign is about. And I've had a couple, saying a nightmare experience is maybe a little bit dramatic, but I've had a couple of not so great experiences, just not really being aligned with who I am and my brand voice and what I bring to the table. And also, I think really being my personality and what I want to say and what I want to convey being edited out. That's the biggest issue for me when I have a certain way of speaking and I want to say like, heck y'alls and stuff like that are sort of Jara-isms. And when I feel like my personality is erased from the equation, that's when I have a really big issue. And that's what I want to try to avoid. I feel like I've gotten a little bit better at sussing that out over the years, but it happens still sometimes. So my biggest sort of enthusiasm for partnering with a brand, besides just it really aligning nicely with what I do and what I talk about, is their flexibility in me, in allowing me to be me and bringing my creativity and how I want to present their brand, product, or service to the table.
Thank you for that. Let's just be clear. I'm a Portuguese woman. You are not dramatic, okay? You should meet my family. You should meet my mom, okay? But I'll come back. I'll come back to you on your experiences a bit later. But
Sure.
I'm would like to understand and learn about how do you align your objectives as a creator with the objectives of the brand that you're working with?
I think it's figuring the most obvious way is, does it align with the content that you already talk about? So for example, if I'm talking about myself as a social media coach and speaking very specifically about TikTok tips, photo editing, how to plan out your social media, posing tips, if I didn't say that already, anything around social media, if a brand comes to me and is within that space already, that's a really easy win-win for me to then easily convert that content to what I already talk about on TikTok specifically. So for example, I worked with a video editing app recently. I had a great campaign with them. They're so easy to work with, super in line with what I already speak about. And so that kind of seamless partnership is exactly what I'm going for. I think there's still potential for branded partnerships, even if it isn't super specific to your core content, but still specific for you. So for example, I had a really successful campaign recently with a physical product, which is a picture frame that plays video, but like it's
I saw of your wedding.
yeah. And so that partnership, it wasn't really in regards to social media, my core content, but it was very topical to me as I just got married in March in the middle of a pandemic. It's a crazy story for another time. But that partnership was perfect for bringing through my personal story, which, side note, is something that I teach to every single creator and brand. You must weave in who you are, your struggles, your experiences, your story into your content in order to really stand out from the noise. Otherwise, you're just another XYZ. And so I think that's why that partnership aligned really well, even though it wasn't specifically about social media.
Good. Thank you, Jara. Now that we have a good idea of what to look out for when embarking onto a collaboration between a brand and a creator, what's this collaboration process like? Maybe Benoit can give us a client perspective.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot of back and forth, right? It's like Jara was saying, is like you have to make sure that you don't want to push it. So as you start engaging with them, you need to make sure it's a fit. Because if they don't want to do it, even if you think because of everything that you look for, or data that you like, is like this is the perfect one. If they don't want to do it, they don't want to do it, right? It's not going to result in anything good. So I would say take the time to understand them. But I think the challenge that I see is when you start doing more than one, which is where you want to be, right? You want to do 20, 100, 200, 500,000 creators that you work with. And that's where you need to have the proper management, the proper tools, the proper team to manage that. And for us, it's a mix of, well, you will look at that as a talent agency. Basically, you have the person that knows that influencer or that creator very well, and then you have the person that makes sure that the campaigns roll out well, right? So you have those. You need to have those people involved. It's not just like you turn on the campaign and you let it run. There's quite a bit of work compared to any other paid user acquisition campaigns. But if you take the time, you can definitely get the rewards in terms of install. I mean, to give some numbers for us, like in couple months, we've been able to drive over 1 million downloads on one of our apps. So there is scale at Recoup, so at positive ROAS. So there is scale in that space.
Good, thank you. You know, if you talk about ROAS, but obviously, you know, payment terms. Is this a flat fee? Like how do you agree on payment?
That's a very good point. And the way we build it for us and then build it for others on our platform, it's all CPI driven. And it took a long time to educate the creators on the benefit of CPI. Obviously, there's less risk for the advertiser, but there's a lot more upside for the creator. And that's the thing that I've seen. I've done, I'm going to give you an example. I've done a campaign about a couple of years ago. It was not on TikTok. It was, and I have two, one on Musical.ly, one on YouTube. One on YouTube with Lily Pons, right? Very established creator. And she wanted to go on a flat fee. So we went on a flat fee. And I can tell you that if we had gone on a CPI basis, we would have paid probably 5x what we paid her. And we paid her already a lot. So it was a very profitable campaign for us. But too bad she didn't understand the benefit of that. Then on Musical.ly, you know, TikTok back then, we used to have campaigns and with top influencers that are still top influencers now on TikTok, like Kristen Ashner, that is pretty big. And she was at that time, she didn't understand. It's like, test that because you're going to see. And she probably 10x what she would have made on the flat fee, and she was ecstatic. So obviously it works only for the creators that have a good audience. So also that's a big red flag for you guys when you work with creators and they're pushing really hard for a flat fee. Be careful, because that means that they may not be that confident about their audience. Because if they're confident in their audience, I can tell you that the CPI is the way to go, because they will make a lot more money.
Okay, interesting. Let's see if Jara agrees. Like, how do you deal with payment terms, Jara?
I'm coming a little bit from a different perspective. I'm open to the idea of it. So maybe it's perhaps just what I'm used to and therefore what I'm comfortable with. I personally feel comfortable with the flat fee. That is how I've operated from day one, mostly because that's how brands have offered it to me. And I've also had a manager for 4 years, and I know that's how they operate as well. Of course, if something performs well, it'd be nice to get paid more, but I kind of think of it from the perspective of like, if you have a creative director or a producer, like creating a commercial, they're getting paid a flat fee. So it's like my time and my energy as well. Like I've got a, family to take care of and all that kind of stuff. So I need to know that if I'm putting time and effort into something, I'm getting compensated for it. And something else that comes to mind is I see it very much with Instagram. I think less so with TikTok, is how anything with hashtag ad does get suppressed. I mean, my sponsored content in general performs less well than my regular content, specifically on Instagram, because I know that the organic reach is suppressed. So that's why I'm just a little bit hesitant with what Benoit described. Of course, I can see the benefit with some users, but I feel like I'm a little bit stuck in my ways with how I currently operate.
But one big other thing to hear is when you hear that word manager, just run away. That's the red flag right there. When you're a manager, you know there is trouble coming, right? As a brand, those guys are gonna create drama. It's like anytime I hear the word manager, I just move away from it, from the campaign, because I know it's gonna be extremely expensive, not working. So that's my big take on that.
Yeah, Benoit, sorry, let me just add to that super quickly. Benoit, totally understand. I've been with a couple different management agencies. I have heard things in the past about someone that I used to be with that are very challenging to work with. I do know for a fact that my agency that I'm currently with are absolutely wonderful. I've heard that from the brand side as well. So definitely acknowledging that some managers and agencies can be really challenging, but also want to put in the note that there are some good ones out there like Neon Rose that I'm with.
Thank you so much, guys. I feel like it's like a tennis match. I'm just like, whoa, from one to the other. And maybe Hans, what other types of payments do you see in the platform? From looking at different creators and different brands working together.
Yeah, I actually really like the juxtaposition between Benoit and Jara, in the sense that, as I mentioned earlier, there is no one size fits all strategy when it comes to creators. They all work in many different ways. And personally, And speaking on behalf of TikTok, like we don't want to be involved in that. We allow the brands and the creators to work that out themselves, even when working through something like the TikTok Creator Marketplace. I'll just add there's one additional model that I've seen, which is a hybrid model between what Jared and Benoit are talking about, right? So you can actually get paid a flat fee as well as a performance bonus if it does well. And maybe that's like a good, somewhere in between, but I'm certainly not giving my recommendation for brands or creators on how best they see fit.
Yeah,
Well,
I
thank
would
you.
say that model actually has been working the best with like the really big ones, like the 20 million plus followers. They want a flat fee, but they also are very confident. But because again of these their managers, they want something to come in for sure. So we do like minimum guarantee plus incentive with like the big guys, and usually it works. It works really well.
Yeah, and one more point to add to this discussion. There's another component that we may not have mentioned yet, which is they may not be posting, right? They may just be making videos for you. And so sometimes that video production component is another element that we see creators being employed for.
So you see brands actually delegating the content creation to the creator?
Yeah,
Completely.
so specifically for ads, right? They're not going to post it anywhere, but they're just developing the ads that they can leverage in their in-feed video.
Thank you. And Ross,
We do that all the time. One thing on that, because it's a very important trend right now, where we create a lot without posting. So we go reach out to the TikTok. They use actually the TikTok platform to create the ad, and then they give us the ad. And actually, we're testing them all right now as we speak to give it more incentive to the creator, where we do it also on a CPI. So when they use that ad as an ad, we get a royalty fee on the usage of the ad per install of the ad. So we're testing that right now, but there is a lot to discover in that space. This is really good.
The space is really evolving. You know, I've talked to some creators who in the beginning of the year, let's say they were on TikTok, and they weren't actually getting that many brand deals. And now when I reach out to them, they're so inundated with brand deals that they actually don't even have the capacity to make any more posts on their profile. They're like, I'm booked for the rest of the year. And so this allows them to sort of not have capacity constraints because they can create as many videos to be used as ads that they don't have to post themselves. And that, again, it just helps them get even more bang for their buck.
thank you. Ross, left you there on your own. Where does the agency in the middle of all this? You know, collaboration between the brand and the creator, but the agency is still there. Like, how do you find this?
Yeah, I mean, the way we see it is often the most successful campaigns are the ones where the brand or by extension the agency employs the creator as like a true consultant to the brand. So we always say no one knows the audience better than the creator, right? So this means, as I talked about earlier, being open and honest about them and the brand's expectations and what they're looking for, but also just listening to the creator as an expert on the platform. The amount of times kind of where we've written a brief and the creator will say, this doesn't work for XYZ, these reasons, and we've gone and redone it, and we've seen like a much better campaign off the back of that. And again, different creators work in different ways. Some like to challenge the brief, some will take it and run, some like to get a lot of background information, some like just a few concise bullet points just to get some thought starters going. So again, it's just over time, you really seem to crack the code, especially when you're working with the same creators over and over again and building a relationship. Those kind of results and the greater collaboration really seems to improve.
Great, thank you. And Jared, we spoke about your experiences on collaboration before lightly, but I want you to dive a bit more into that. If you think about some of the positive experiences that you've had working with brands, give us some examples if you can, and also some other lessons that you've learned from challenging partnerships.
I think the key really is a theme that keeps coming up as we're chatting here is a harmonious symbiotic relationship, whatever that word is, between the creator and the brand. And so I really like when there typically is at least some guidance with what the brand is looking for. Of course, there's requirements of things you need to talk about in terms of the product or the app, etc. At least to kind of set me on the path of what it is that they're looking for, but enough wiggle room to really bring my creativity and my ideas into what I'm presenting. And so some of my long-term partnerships that I have right now, I just absolutely adore them because they really let me flex my kind of weird muscle, or at least like my silly muscle, and bring in different voices and characters and wear costumes like the wizard. So for example, I work with Yasso right now, which is a frozen Greek yogurt bar. They're freaking delicious. But what they let me do is just so much fun, and they let me kind of build on current internet culture. So for example, the cranberry juice with Dogface that we were talking about, I was like, wow, this is such a popular video right now. What if I do this with a Yasso bar? And so sure enough, I have a skateboard from when I was attempting to learn skateboarding 2 years ago. And my husband tied a rope around it. And there I was, like, he was pulling me because I can't really hold a Yasso and film myself and skateboard at the same time. And then showed the behind the scenes. And so really bringing people into the process and riffing on things that currently are popular and just being silly with it is super fun. So that's an example of a brand that just really lets me like kind of let my freak flag fly a little bit and have fun with their product, and that's what my audience really resonates with. In terms of more challenging partnerships, I definitely have a couple that I can list off. I think the first, without naming any names, the first that comes to mind was a brand partner that I actually really like, but they were super incredibly strict and had really tight reins on the creative. And I'll give you a specific example. They had to have a barbecue in the photo. Like, the barbecue had to be there. I was living in New York City at the time, and let me tell you, I did not have a barbecue in my 300 square foot apartment or in my like crappy building that I lived in. So what I did was take a photo, and I photoshopped a barbecue into the background. Now, I'll tell you, I used to be a graphic designer and I have some Photoshop skills, so that I was able to do it, but I was wondering, like, what the heck would I have done? Because they would not let this go. I was about to go to Walmart and buy a barbecue and do it in like Tompkins Square Park. It was bizarre. So the end result, I got there, but it took a lot of work and it felt very inauthentic and kind of fake to have to Photoshop in a barbecue to my photo. So those are kind of two very different examples of taking something and running with it and it working, and then really not being flexible at all to work with the creator and their environment and what they have available to them.
Because, well, thank you so much. What we've heard here is, authenticity. It's a word that keeps on coming up. And, photoshopping a barbecue in your living room doesn't seem authentic, right? Just let the girl do a thing. Anyway, thank you for that. Hans, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say this industry revolves around trust, right? And so the brands need to feel like they can trust the creator need to feel like they're not going to be taken advantage of by the brands. And I will say I've been pleasantly surprised at the willingness of creators to want to build long-term relationships. They're often not looking for a one-time, one and done. They want to make sure that the brand is happy, that they're hitting the metrics that the brand cares about so that they can earn repeat business. Obviously, that's beneficial for both parties. And so just keep that in mind to assume positive intent when going into these relationships.
Good, thank you. We're running out of time. So let's wrap up. I would ask one thing from each one of you, if possible. What would be the one thing that you hope that the audience takes away from today's conversation around creator marketing? Let's start with Jera.
I think it's reiterating what I've already said. It's tapping into the unique creativity, personality that each creator brings. It's not having one rigid standard for each campaign and each thing that you're trying to put out into social media, but it's having an idea and then allowing that to be flexible and sort of molded to each particular person so that your product or service can really shine in their light and their lens.
Thank you. What about you, Benoit?
I think for me, the most important thing right now is leverage those creators to create ad units for your paid campaigns. This is really, really strong. And I think there's a lot to be done there. And we see amazing performance through that. So also for anybody, like I'm doing that every day. So if you want to reach out, I'm happy to talk.
Thank you. Ross?
I've said it before, and I'm just going to say it again because I think it's really important. Just kind of being open and honest, and actually willing to take on new ideas. In any true partnership, that spirit of collaboration and trust is always going to help maximize the potential of that partnership.
Thank you. Last but not least, Hans.
Yeah, I just say, we all know that creator marketing works, and I know that creator marketing is new for a lot of mobile app advertisers specifically, but don't test to see if it works, test until it works. It is a process. You're not going to get it perfect the very first time, but as long as you test, learn, and adapt, and just get out there and start doing it, you'll learn quickly and it'll start working for you.
Thank you very much, guys. I have one quick last question for you, and I just want one sentence from each. Crystal ball time, right? If we could have a magic wand or crystal ball in which we could see the future, what's happening in 2020? How is creator marketing evolving? What's coming? Jared?
I think it's ditching the concept of curated perfection in the highlight reel, tapping into more real connection, and also leaning more heavily into video versus photos.
Great, thank you. Hans?
So this is not speaking on behalf of TikTok. This is just my personal viewpoint. I hear a lot from creators that they would like the ability to actually reach out to brands. So not just brands reaching out to them, but how do they actually indicate to brands, hey, we want to work with you? And I think that's something that we should consider.
Very interesting point. Ross?
I think there's a big future which is kind of around this concept of social shopping. I know I've already talked a lot about kind of some of the campaigns we're running this year being predominantly awareness focused, but we're seeing that huge shift, especially over the last 2 years, with kind of brands looking for more ways to kind of sell to consumers. But that demand is actually already there from consumers. They want really simple, easy, functional options to do their shopping. So I think there's a big theme around that coming.
Thank you. Last but not least, Benoit.
For me, I would say crystal ball is next year, and next, maybe even further than that, the influencer marketing becomes number one source of paid UA for a lot of advertisers. And watch when iOS 14 is gonna, or when Apple release whatever privacy and attribution change, a lot of people are gonna start spending a ton of money on influencers. So that's my prediction.
You meant creators, but I got it. Cool. Sorry. Thank you so much, everyone, for today. I'm not sure about you, but I had so much fun, and I learned a lot today as well. So thank you so much for our beautiful panelists, and I hope to speak to you soon. Bye.